Okay, let's be honest. We all use it. For emails, for brainstorming, maybe even for homework. AI assistants like ChatGPT are absolutely everywhere, and they promise to make us faster, smarter, more productive. But what's the hidden cost of all that convenience? Are we, without even realizing it, racking up some kind of cognitive debt? Let's dive into the evidence and see what's actually going on inside our heads.
So, is this just some philosophical debate for a late-night talk? Not at all. It's the exact question a really fascinating new studies set out to answer by looking at what we write, what we actually remember, and what our brains are doing while we do it.
So, to figure this out, researchers set up this brilliant three-way competition. They split people into groups. You had Team AI, who could only use ChatGPT. Then there was Team Search. They could only use a search engine like Google. And finally, Team Brain. Well, they were on their own. Nothing but their own two wits. The task? To write a bunch of essays over several months.
All right, so first up, the researchers just analyzed the essays themselves, looking for clues hidden in the text. What story were the words telling?
And the very first clue was striking. When actual human English teachers graded these essays, they had this immediate gut reaction to the AI-assisted writing. They called it soulless. Even when the essays were grammatically perfect and structured beautifully, they just felt hollow. They were missing that distinct human voice.
And here's the data that might explain that soulless feeling. As you can see in this chart, the essays from the AI group, that's the bar way over on the left, were just crammed with what linguists call named entities. We're talking specific facts, names, dates. It made the writing sound really academic for sure, but it also kind of stripped it of any personal touch. It was a ton of information, but not a lot of insight.
This slide right here illustrates the difference in thinking styles perfectly. You see that crazy, sprawling web on the left? That's the idea map of an AI-assisted essay. Just tons and tons of interconnected ideas. Now, look at the map on the right. That's from a Team Brain essay. It's so much more focused, more linear. It tells a story, It follows a single personal train of thought. So the essays told one part of the story. But to get the full picture, the researchers had to go deeper, from looking at the words on the page to actually analyzing the brain activity that created them.
And they did this using EEG, which is a way of measuring the brain's electrical signals. The easiest way to think about it is like putting a super sensitive microphone up to the brain and just listening in on all the conversations happening between different regions as it tries to solve a problem. And what they found was, wow. Just focus on the brain scan in that third row, labeled Brain Only. All those lines crisscrossing the image, they represent connections lighting up between different parts of the brain. This is the signature of real, deep cognitive work, pulling memories, making new connections, building ideas from the ground up. This is what your brain looks like when it's really doing the heavy lifting.
Now compare that with the scan up top for LLM. That's the AI group. See the difference? The activity is way more localized. There are far fewer of those crisscrossing connection lines. What that means is, this brain isn't doing the deep, synthetic work itself. It's outsourcing it. This is a perfect picture of what scientists call cognitive offloading. The brain is literally letting the tool do the thinking.
But here's the thing. This offloading came with a really serious and, frankly, a pretty shocking side effect. And this is where the experiment delivered its biggest punch.
Because for the fourth and final session, the participants came back. But this time, the researchers threw in a major twist.
The rules were completely reversed. Team AI had their ChatGPT access taken away. They had to rely only on their own memory. And Team Brain, who'd been going it alone this whole time, they were finally given the AI tool. And the task for everyone was to rewrite an essay on a topic they'd already written about before.
And the results were staggering. Just look at the red chart on the left. It shows that the vast majority of the AI group were totally unable to quote from their own essay. Now look at the blue chart on the right. It shows the exact opposite for Team Brain. They remembered their work with incredible accuracy. The knowledge just wasn't sticking for the AI users.
Let this number sink in for a second. 7 out of the 9 participants who had been using AI could not correctly quote a single sentence from their own essay. They hadn't just offloaded the thinking, they had offloaded the memory, the ownership of the ideas. The knowledge never really made it into their heads in the first place.
So this brings us all the way back to that idea of soulless but fact-dense writing. And it raises this huge question. Who's the better judge of what makes a good essay? A human teacher who's looking for creativity, or an AI that's programmed to value data?
Well, the study found a major disagreement. These heat maps show where the AI's scores, that's the horizontal axis, and the human teacher's scores, the vertical axis, tended to cluster. If they agreed, the bright spots would form a nice, straight, diagonal line. But they don't. Especially on that chart on the right for uniqueness, you can see the human scores are consistently lower than the AI's. The AI valued the structure, while the humans were looking for a personal voice, for that spark.
So what is all of this? The soulless text, the quiet brain scans, the forgotten essays. What does it all really add up to?
The researchers gave it a name, cognitive debt. And it's a lot like financial debt, right? Taking a mental shortcut today feels easy, it feels convenient, but you pay for it later. By constantly letting AI do the hard work of synthesis and creation, we might be weakening the very cognitive muscles we need for critical thinking, for creativity, and for forming lasting knowledge.
And the interest on that debt is high. We're talking about a potential decline in our ability to think critically, a weaker memory, and just a weaker sense of ownership over our own ideas, and maybe even a loss of genuine creativity. It could even make us more vulnerable to the biases that are baked into the AI's programming, simply because we're not doing the hard thinking ourselves.
So, at the end of the day, it all comes down to a trade-off. On one side, you've got the deep, effortful work of the human brain, which is how we build real learning and real memory. And on the other, you have the speed of AI assistance, which is amazing for quick information retrieval, but not for building lasting knowledge.
Look, there's no question that AI is an incredible tool. It's not going away. So the real question this research leaves us with is a personal one for all of us. How do we engage with these technologies in a way that actually extends our own intelligence, instead of letting it fade? How do we use AI to build on our thinking, rather than just doing our thinking for us?